Hello, my name is Jen and I am the Reference and Technology Specialist at a library in a public university. Welcome to my workshop on effective learning in libraries. Today we will discuss popular learning myths and ways to promote effective learning within libraries. There are quite a few things that I hope you will take away from today's presentation. At the end, I hope that you're able to identify some of the least productive study techniques and explain why they are often unhelpful. I also hope that you're able to identify the role libraries play in learning. With that, you should be able to create your own program that teaches or incorporates effective learning strategies. Libraries are a place to teach. We do this through our interactions with patrons and with programming. We truly love to help our patrons learn. Unfortunately, many people, including our patrons, are often not taking the right approach to learning. It's not because they don't want to. It's simply because they haven't been taught. We are in a great position to help our patrons learn in a more effective way. Think back to your time in school. When preparing for an exam, what did you do? Many students will simply reread their textbook multiple times until they feel like they are comfortable with the material. This method of cramming is unfortunately among the least productive study methods. Why do people continue to take part in cramming method if it is so ineffective? The truth is, most people are often fooled into thinking that they have learned something simply because the material has become familiar. If you are reading the same text over and over, you will likely be able to recall information easily because you know the order that it goes in. However, when a test is put in front of you and it does not follow that same order, you will not be prepared. The most important thing to do is create a solid foundation of knowledge. Doing this can prepare you for elaboration. This is when you're able to take in new information and make connections to things you already know. For instance, if you are working with a library patron who wants to learn how to use an iPad or a tablet, it would be very beneficial if they had the foundational knowledge of working with a computer. If they did, you could help them make connections to that. So now that we understand that cramming and rereading text is not an effective learning strategy, let's talk about what it is. Recalling information from memory, called retrieval practice, leads to successful learning. An example of this is using flashcards. Pretty simple, right? Practicing this periodically will interrupt the process of forgetting. When using flashcards, I would suggest trying the Lightner box approach. When you make flashcards, create 4 to 5 containers to put the flashcards in. The first box is the information you need to practice with, and the one you need to practice more frequently. The last box is the one that contains the flashcards you've mastered, also known as the one you need to practice less frequently. Box number 1 will hold the cards that you are the least familiar with, and box number 5 will hold the cards that you truly know and understand. As you quiz yourself, take note of the cards you answer correctly and incorrectly. If you answer incorrectly, you need to move that card to the box before it, closer to box number 1. If you have the correct answer, you can put it in the next box, closer to box number 5. As an example, if you pull out a card from box number 3 and you answer it correctly, you will then place it into box number 4. However, if you answer it incorrectly, you will move it to box number 2 so that you can practice it more frequently. This system helps stop the illusion of knowing. While working in a library, you're exposed to a diverse group of learners. You see the little 5-year-old girl, anxious to pick out her own books and practice her reading skills. You see the college-aged boy, frantically flipping through his biology textbook, desperate to memorize all the vocabulary words for this week's quiz. And you also see the 70-year-old couple taking a workshop on computers for beginners. While all these people are at very different stages in their lives, they all have something in common, the desire to learn. Our goal is to help them in their quest for knowledge. Librarians and library staff serve as a resource for people from all walks of life. We try our best to help people learn, but are we really doing it in the most effective way? In a library setting, we often host workshops for patrons. In most cases, especially workshops given in university libraries, these workshops often revolve around teaching the students something. Whether it be research-related help or digital literacy, we hope that our workshops can be of some use to students. Most workshops tend to follow the one-and-done model. This means that we hope we can teach them everything they need to know about a topic in one workshop. Rarely is this possible. With the goal of implementing some new techniques, something you can try is spaced learning. Perhaps a series of workshops on one topic would be more beneficial to students' ability to learn and retain information. Spacing the learning out over different workshops would also allow the students to experience a level of elaboration. If the workshops increased in difficulty of content, they would be able to stretch the boundaries of what they already know. Another suggestion would be to provide materials for your patrons to create their own Lightner box. This can be done with index cards and cardstock. The cardstock would allow them to create their own boxes. You would just need to print out simple instructions on how to do so. Just think, most libraries already have these items on hand. As we spoke about before, elaboration will help your patrons learn. While communicating with them, try your best to meet them where they are in terms of knowledge. Building on what they already know can help learning the new information be so much easier. To kick off a workshop, especially one teaching any sort of technology, it would be beneficial to give students a small task and ask them to complete it prior to teaching them anything. For instance, if I was presenting a workshop on how to use Photoshop, I would ask guests to create accounts and then ask them to play around a little bit with the software so that they could introduce themselves to it. This trial and error approach might initially intimidate them, but would later serve as a foundation for learning. Giving them time to play around with the software prior to teaching them anything would also offer them some level of familiarity. Before offering this free-range experimental time, I think it's important to tell your guests why you're doing this and explain the reasoning and the science behind it. As an act of empowerment, I would also explain that while you may or may not consider yourself tech-savvy, you do have the ability to learn. As librarians and library staff, we have an amazing platform to help a diverse group of learners. Now we understand why the learning strategies that a lot of our patrons use are ineffective. Although they might lean towards it, cramming and rereading texts are among the least productive ways of learning. We now know we should be encouraging our patrons to take part in the retrieval practice while studying. A simple example of this would be creating flashcards. If they are interested in taking their studying to the next level, they could create a Lightner box to help them during their self-quizzing. We also know that we should keep the idea of elaboration in mind when trying to teach patrons new things. If we make a connection to something they already know and understand, they'll have an easier time understanding and learning the new information. I hope you feel as though you're able to incorporate the proper learning strategies into not only your programming, but your everyday interactions with patrons. Thank you so much for joining me today. For more information on this topic, I would highly suggest reading the text listed here, as it was instrumental in creating this presentation. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions. Best of luck to you as you continue to improve yourself and the interactions you have with your patrons.